You feel it in your chest before you can name it. A hollow weight sitting just behind your ribs. You are surrounded by people, maybe. Or maybe you are alone. Either way, the feeling is the same. And science is starting to realize that feeling might be slowly killing you. Not metaphorically. Literally, loneliness is not just an emotion. It is a biological alarm system, ancient and precise, built into your nervous system over hundreds of thousands of years. And right now, for millions of people, that alarm is going off constantly. The question is not why you feel it. The question is why your body treats it the same way it treats physical pain. Here is what your brain actually sees when you are lonely. Neuroscientist John Cacioppo spent decades studying loneliness at the University of Chicago. What he found redrew the map of human health. His research showed that chronically lonely people had measurably higher levels of cortisol, the primary stress hormone, coursing through their blood every single day. Their immune systems were suppressed. Their cardiovascular systems were under strain. Their brains, scanned in labs, showed heightened activity in regions associated with threat detection. They were not just sad. They were physiologically on guard at all times. Your body treats loneliness as a survival threat, because for most of human history, it was. Imagine your ancestor standing on the edge of a grassland 200,000 years ago. No shelter, no fire, no weapons alone, no chance. The humans who survived were the ones who stayed bonded to their group. The ones who felt deep discomfort when separated, who felt a pull, urgent and physical, back toward the tribe. That discomfort was not weakness. It was the mechanism that kept them alive. You inherited it. Cacioppo called it the social monitoring system. When you are isolated, your brain shifts into a heightened state of vigilance. It starts scanning the environment for threats. It starts interpreting ambiguous social signals as hostile. A friend who does not text back becomes evidence of rejection. A stranger's neutral expression becomes a hidden sneer. Your brain is not being irrational. It is running ancient software designed to protect you in a world where being cut off from the group meant death. The problem is that software was not designed for modern life. It was not designed for a world where you could be completely physically safe and utterly socially disconnected at the same time. In 2015, researcher Julianne Holt-Lunstad published a meta-analysis that sent a quiet shock through the medical community. She analyzed data from 148 studies covering over 300,000 people. The conclusion was stark. Loneliness increased the risk of early death by 26%. Social isolation increased it by 29%. Living alone increased it by 32%. These numbers put loneliness in the same category of risk as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Higher than obesity. Higher than physical inactivity. The most dangerous thing you might be experiencing right now has no visible symptoms and no warning label. Why does isolation do this to a body? Part of the answer lies in how your nervous system responds to perceived threat. When you feel alone and unsafe, your body activates its stress response. Cortisol floods your bloodstream. Inflammation increases. Your immune system, designed to defend against physical injury, shifts into a state of chronic low-level activation. In the short term, this is useful. In a real emergency, inflammation helps you survive wounds. But chronically, it corrodes. It damages blood vessels. It accelerates the aging of cells. It creates the biological conditions for heart disease, stroke, and cognitive decline. Psychiatrist Steve Cole at UCLA found that lonely individuals showed fundamentally different patterns of gene expression than people who felt connected. Genes associated with inflammation were dialed up. Genes associated with antiviral responses were dialed down. The body of a lonely person is, at the molecular level, preparing for a fight. And it does it day after day, wearing itself down, waiting for a social threat that may never take a physical form. This is not about introversion. That distinction matters. Introversion is a preference for less stimulation. It is about how you recharge your energy. Loneliness is about the gap between the social connection you have and the social connection you need. You can be profoundly introverted and not lonely at all, because the few deep bonds you have are enough, and you can stand in the middle of a crowded party and feel the hollow weight behind your ribs, because none of those connections touch you. The epidemic of loneliness is not about how many people surround you. It is about whether any of them truly see you. That is why modern life has created conditions for loneliness that no previous generation faced at this scale. You can have 500 digital contacts and feel invisible. You can receive notifications all day from people who interact with your image, your output, your persona, and still feel unknown. Social researcher Sherry Turkle at MIT has written extensively about this paradox, what she calls being alone together. You are technically connected, but connection without depth is not what your nervous system was built for. Your ancient social monitoring system is not fooled by 100 likes. It is waiting for something it can trust, and trust, in evolutionary terms, takes time and presence and vulnerability. Here is what makes loneliness so difficult to treat. The same alarm system that drives you toward connection can, when it runs too long, begin to work against you. Cacioppo's research showed that prolonged loneliness actually changes how you perceive other people. You start to expect rejection. You start to interpret warmth as conditional. You withdraw slightly, preemptively, to protect yourself from the rejection you believe is coming. And that withdrawal makes you more isolated, which activates the alarm more loudly, which makes you withdraw further. It is a loop your ancestors never had to face because in a small tribe, true sustained isolation was nearly impossible. The system never had to run for years on end without resolution. Your world is different. Right now, in countries across the developed world, surveys are returning numbers that epidemiologists are struggling to contextualize. In the United Kingdom, a government minister for loneliness was appointed in 2018 after a report found that 9 million people there reported feeling always or often lonely. In the United States, more than half of adults surveyed reported measurable levels of loneliness before a global pandemic made sustained isolation a public health policy. Among people under 35, the numbers are worse than among the elderly, flipping every assumption researchers had held for decades. The loneliest generation in recorded history may be the most digitally connected one. What do you do with this? The research points towards something deceptively simple. Not more contacts, deeper ones. Not broader social networks, more honest ones. The quality of connection matters more than its quantity. Even one relationship in which you feel genuinely known, seen, and accepted activates different neural pathways than dozens of shallow ones. It reduces cortisol. It quiets the threat detection circuits. It tells your ancient nervous system, in the only language it understands, that you are not alone on the grassland, that the tribe is still there, that you are safe. Cacioppo's final papers before his death in 2018 were almost philosophical in their conclusion. He argued that loneliness was not a personal failing, not a sign of inadequacy, not something to be ashamed of. It was a biological signal, as legitimate and as important as hunger or thirst. Hunger tells you that your body needs food. Loneliness tells you that yourself needs others. The right response to hunger is not to pretend you are not hungry. It is to eat. The right response to loneliness is not to perform connection. It is to find it. Tonight, when you feel that hollow weight behind your ribs, remember what it actually is. It is not weakness. It is not a flaw. It is 200,000 years of evolution telling you something true about what you need to survive. Your ancestors felt it on the edge of the grassland and moved back toward the fire, toward the people who knew their name. The feeling has not changed. The question is whether you listen to it. Because tonight, behind your ribs, The oldest alarm in human history is still working exactly as designed.